this point, I want to go ahead and switch gears a bit and talk about different types of studies and just some other basic definitions that are important within statistics. So I've already filled in all of the important definitions for this first little section. So first off, population is just the collection of all data. So it's the whole group, I should say it that way. It's just the entire group. A parameter is a number that describes a population's characteristic. A sample, on the other hand, rather than is just a subset of the population. So it's a little a subgroup of the population. And a statistic is a number that describes the sample. So in these first few examples, we need to determine if the following are parameters or statistics. And we're talking about the numerical value. So in this case, 49%. So 49% of all teachers in a school would like smaller class sizes. So right here, anytime you see the word all or every indicating an entire group, it's a huge indication that this would be a parameter. So we have the entire group. They took the opinion of the entire group of teachers. It's my sloppy handwriting for you. But parameter is the big key right here. The next one, in a recent year, the average math ACT score was 20.7 for all graduates. Once again, that word all is a huge key that we're talking about the population, which means the number, the 20.7, is a parameter. And so they took the average score of all graduates, of the entire group of graduates. So it's coming from the population. Number 3, the annual average salary of some, so that's a keyword right there, some of the company's salespeople was $35,000. Wow. So this would be a statistic, and that's because they didn't use all the salespeople in the company. They used a subgroup. Took a subgroup or a subset of the company's salespeople. All right. Next one, in a recent survey of 1,000 adults, 47% said that using a cell phone while driving should be illegal. So 47%, since it's coming from just 1,000 adults, that means we're taking a subset of the adults. We're going to say this is also a statistic. And the reason is the sample came, or I should say, they sampled only 1,000 adults, not the whole group. So not every adult. All right, so moving on, let's talk about a couple other important pieces of, or a few other definitions that would be really important. So unbiased sample. An unbiased sample is a sample that is representative of the population you want information about. And the way that you actually get an unbiased sample is by, well, as unbiased as possible, is through random selection. When you randomly select the individuals in the study, that helps the study reduce bias in the long run. So a randomly selecting could include drawing names from a hat. It could be using a computer to randomly select people from a city. It could be rolling a pair of die, whatever, just as long as it's some random process. Not what you might think of random, but a truly random process. Biased sample is a sample that either overrepresents or underrepresents a part of the population. And when you do this, you actually invalidate the data. So here's some prime examples of how bias is introduced when you select a sample. So anytime it's a self-selected sample where people choose to participate or not, you're automatically introducing bias because you're going to get the strong opinions this way. So strong opinions. So here's an example. You might have a radio show host that asks people to call in to give their opinion about a new proposed gun law. And often when that happens, you only get the people who are listening to that radio show. But second, the people who will actually call in are just the ones that actually have strong opinions one way or the other. Now, convenience sample is when you choose people who are just easy to reach. So going back to that radio show host, that's an example of a convenience sample because you're only reaching out to those who are actually listening to your station. So you're getting a very specific subgroup of people, the group that's actually listening to your station. Another example might be if you're just standing at the football game and you're trying to get data on an entire university, but you go to the football stands and only get the first 100 students that come in through the football stands. You're going to get those people who are more sports-loving people coming through, which can create bias, especially depending on what you're asking. So those are kind of the two things you want to avoid. Anytime it's voluntary or called a self-selected sample, or if there's a convenience sample. So let's go to some examples and see if it's biased. Well, they are biased. So every single one of these is biased. We want to explain why it's biased in this case. So the first one, we've got a news organization asks its viewers to participate in an online poll about bullying. So this is a perfect example of self-selected sample. So because it's self-selected, the reason it's biased is people choose to participate. So you'll likely get those with strong opinions. You won't get the people that are kind of more middle ground. So once again, that's an example of a self-selected sample. I also call it a voluntary sample sometimes. Next one, a computer science teacher wants to know how students at a school most often access the internet. The teacher asks students in one of the computer science classes. So notice how it's just one computer science class. That is a problem because it's an example of a convenience sample. So the other students don't have a chance to respond. So that's one issue. And so this is, I should just say, yeah, so you're getting a very specific subgroup, those in that computer science class. So the teacher is only choosing those who are readily available. So we call that the convenience sample. That's a big problem. All right, a committee wants to find out how much time students spend reading each week. They ask students as they enter the library. Here is another convenience sample. So other students, once again, are not getting a chance to participate. So this is a convenience sample. So they're only reaching out to those readily available. And if you think about it, if you're asking students about how much time they're going to be spending each week, and you only ask students who are entering the library, you're going to skew your data to overrepresent how much kids actually read. Because you're asking students who are already prone to be reading, and Therefore, you're going to have a much higher number than what probably the average of the general population would be. So I'm not going to write that out, but that would be something else I'd probably explain. Number 12, the county road department wants to know which roads cause the most concern among the residents of the county. They ask a more upscale restaurant to hand out survey forms. Once again, another example of a convenience sample. So you're only getting a specific demographic. In this case, probably wealthier, the more upscale, wealthier population, which is going to skew your results. Okay, you want to get a broader spectrum so that you can know what people from all walks of life would feel in this form. So that's where that's a problem.